And there were fireworks on Capitol Hill today as U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder faced off with members of the House Judiciary Committee over Operation Fast and Furious.
When this disaster was happening, they decided to be opportunists and use it to expand the gun database that they are now executing by their own regulations in 4 states and asking Congress to expand nationally. Very clearly, they made a crisis, and they're using this crisis to somehow take away or limit people's second.
Those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. In a dramatic scene yesterday on Capitol Hill, several Democrats walked out of a congressional hearing on the Obama administration's contraception rule. They took action after the committee chair blocked testimony from a female witness who supports the mandate. The rule would require health insurance plans, including those provided by Catholic-affiliated hospitals and universities, to offer free birth control methods. Before walking out, Democratic Representative Carol Maloney of New York criticized the panel at the hearing, which was exclusively male.
What I want to know is, where are the women? When I look at this panel, I don't see one single woman representing the tens of millions of women across the country who want and need insurance coverage for basic preventive health care services, including family planning. Where are the women?
In response to Representative Maloney, committee chair Republican Darrell Issa of California explained why the female witness was disqualified.
The minority chose the witness we had not found to be appropriate or qualified. Now, appropriate and qualified is a decision I have to make. I asked our staff, what is her background, what has she done? They did the usual that we do when we're not provided the 3 days and the forms that go with it. They did a Google search. They looked and found that she was, in fact, and is, a college student who appears to have become energized over this issue.
D.C. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton expressed outrage at the chair for his decision.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, we've been denied the right to have a witness. I want to have the right to make a parliamentary inquiry.
More about the issue. We're going to Washington, where we are joined by D.C. Congressmember Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Not much of a scandal. Bad judgment. Balanced. They went after progressives as well as conservatives. And it's a terrible thing when the narrative we've got in our heads just doesn't quite work out because the facts don't back them up. Witnesses we call to back them up turn out to be flawed, not you.
Would the gentleman yield?
I will in a second, Mr. Chairman. But in fact, before I yield, I'd read back a quote from the chairman on national television, because he just assured us that he never linked the president to this. And I read this quote: "This was the targeting of the president's political enemies, effectively, and lies about it during the election year so that it wasn't discovered until afterwards." Now, that's the narrative. And there is no evidence, including from these two witnesses today, that that's true. So when the chairman cautions us correctly to withhold judgment, to be careful, words mean something, I wonder whether the chairman wants to retract his own statements, including that one I just read on television. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
I thank the gentleman. I look forward to seeing evidence that progressive groups were treated equally harshly, delayed, and anything more than looked at. But I will say this. I think it's fair to say today that with the harsh statements the president's made about Tea Party groups, and with the way the Tea Party groups feel about the president's usurping of the Constitution and his expansion beyond his powers, yes, they are enemies of the president's politics, and I stand by that.
I reclaim my time. That, of course, you can stand by that, Mr. Chairman, but that wasn't your initial narrative. Your initial narrative was there was an enemies list, and it was limited to conservative groups like the Tea Party, and that's not true. In fact, the evidence tells us that's not true. More and more evidence coming out that the Inspector General cherry-picked evidence to help with your narrative. And we'll hear from him in the next.
Counsel, I respectfully exercise my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer that question.
Ladies and gentlemen, seeking the truth is the obligation of this committee. I can see no point in going further. I have no expectation that Ms. Lerner will cooperate with this committee, and therefore we stand adjourned.
Chairman, I have a statement. I have a procedural question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a procedural question. Mr. Chairman, you cannot run a committee like this. You just cannot do this. We're better than that as a country. We're better than that as a committee. I have asked for a few minutes to ask a procedural. Now you're turning me off. I don't care. The fact is I'm asking a question. I am the ranking member of this committee, and I want to ask a question. What are we hiding? What's the big deal? May I ask my question? May I state my statement?
You're all free to leave. We've adjourned, but the gentleman may ask his question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I have one procedural question, and it goes to trying to help you get the information, by the way, that you just asked.
What is your question?
Let me say what I have to say. I've listened to you for the last 15 or 20 minutes. Let me say what I have to say. Chairman, I have one procedural question.
Ms. Lerner, you're released. You may.
But first, I would like to use my time to make some brief points. For the past year, the central Republican accusation in this investigation.
We're adjourned. Close it down.
Political collusion directed by on behalf of the White House. Before our committee received a single document.
Thank you.
We'll introduce one witness. Chairman Issa went on national television and said this, and I quote, "This was the targeting of the president's political enemies effectively and lies about it during the election year," end of quote. He continued this theme on Sunday when if you will sit down and allow me to ask the question, I am a member of the Congress of the United States of America. I am tired of this.
Well,
we have members over here, each who represent 700,000 people. You cannot just have a one-sided investigation. There is absolutely something wrong with that, and this is absolutely un-American. Hear, hear.
we had a hearing. It was adjourned. I gave you an opportunity to ask a question. You had no question.
I do have a